Hey everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Amy from Neurotic Mom Bakes, and in a couple of my past tutorials, I have done some Walmart cake glow-ups or makeovers, and I've showed you how you can kind of turn them into more of a custom cake using a store-bought cake. Well, today I'm gonna just kind of ramp that up a little bit, and I'm gonna show you how to, I call it the emergency wedding cake. Let me just give you a scenario. This is a true story. Let's say your wedding cake, your custom wedding cake that you ordered from a custom wedding cake maker, on the way to the venue, to avoid an accident, she had to brake really, really hard, and the cake, even though it was boxed up securely, went flying forward and was smashed and ruined. This was about 2 hours before the event. Guess what? Things like that happen. I actually posted this on my Instagram, and you would not believe how many people commented and said, oh yeah, this happened to me, or I made my own, but my dog ate it before. And I mean, there's just so many things that happen. So I'm gonna show you, let's say that happened, and you just needed to make a cake in a big hurry. I'm gonna show you how to make an emergency wedding cake using these are from Walmart, but you know, any grocery store bakery, 3 cakes from a grocery store bakery, and I'm gonna turn this into a really pretty wedding cake. And it's actually quite simple. The only things you're going to need besides, you know, your cakes is just a couple cake decorating tools. I do have my milkshake straws for supports. You're definitely gonna want that. And I have some of my own frosting that I have made. However, if you were on a real-time crunch, my secret for like quick frosting is to buy the tubs of the pre-made frosting, and I throw them in my KitchenAid, and I add powdered sugar just to make them a little more stiff because it's pretty soft. You wouldn't want to like frost a cake with this or try to do rosettes. Some powdered sugar, some vanilla, and some salt just to kind of ramp up the flavor a little bit. That's if you're in a real hurry. But I've got my own frosting here, and I'm going to show you that I can, in fact, we should time this. We should time this start to finish and see how long realistically this takes me to put this cake together. So I'm gonna turn on my phone timer, and I'm gonna start right now. Set that aside. I'm gonna go just wash my hands. Okay, this is gonna be fun. So I have a cake drum already here on my turntable, and on this bottom layer, so I have an 8-inch, a 6-inch, and a 4-inch. On this 8-inch one, I don't want this cardboard on the bottom, so I am actually going to kind of lift that off and place it onto here. So actually, I don't need the tape, but I do want a little bit of frosting just to make sure it sticks. I'm gonna kind of run my offset spatula underneath just to kind of loosen it. And then I'm gonna grab another spatula, so I have 2 kind of holding it. And I'm just gonna lift it off and place it carefully in the center of my, don't worry about ruining the frosting too much because that's all going to be scraped off. We just wanna center it on the cake drum. Slide it this way a little bit. There we go. Okay, next thing I wanna do is I want to scrape off most of these decorations. I'm just gonna take the rosette and these pearls. And I know if you haven't tried this, it's hard to believe, but these cakes are so good. These are not actually made at Walmart or by Walmart bakers. They are ordered and shipped in from an offsite bakery, and they are actually really delicious. The frosting isn't my favorite, because they put some stabilizers in them, but the actual cake and filling inside is so delicious. So I like to make my own frosting because I prefer my recipe. It's mostly gonna be covered, so it doesn't need to be perfect. So I'm gonna move this aside. I'm actually gonna chill it a little bit while I scrape off the other cakes. Now, these other cakes, you do want to keep them on their cardboard, because like a regular cake, you're stacking them and that cardboard just gives you more surface area, and then with the straws, it's protected from collapsing. It's quite soft frosting. This looks more like whipped cream frosting. So I want to get a lot of that off because that is very soft. if there's any warmth at all, it's going to slide all around your buttercream that you put on top. So you want to get that off as much as possible. Go ahead and chill this as well. So basically it's like you already have your crumb coats on as well. So we're only gonna have to mess with the outer coat on this. But that is another reason why I want to chill this, to get it set, get the cake kind of frozen, and the frosting will go on more smoothly. Let's get our last one. Again, leaving it on the cardboard. This is a pretty smooth side of frosting here. So all I really want to do is try to just get rid of most of the sprinkles. The rest of it can stay into the freezer. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Okay, these have been in the freezer for about 7 or 8 minutes. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stack them. So you definitely need some sort of support. And you're going to use straws. And you know, they don't have to be milkshake because these aren't very big cakes. You could use regular straws and it would probably be enough support. But if you were doing larger cakes or heavier cakes, if they had like a really dense filling, definitely go with the bigger straws. But you would be surprised how strong these are, and wooden dowels just aren't necessary. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just going to, this cake is pretty shallow, so I'm gonna be able to use the same straw. So I'm gonna wanna do one in the center, and then I'm going to do, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 around the sides. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna stick it down there, and then I'm gonna lift it up, and you can see right where the frosting is. And I'm gonna cut it right there, maybe just like the tiniest bit above. And just do the next one. So that frosting is a good mark right there. Hands weren't so shaky. I'm gonna go ahead and do 4 around, so a total of 5, just to be safe. They're easy to pull out when you cut the cake. I get asked that a lot. What do you do with the straws? They're easy, when you hit one, they're easy to just pull out with. Or actually, when you lift the tiers off after you've cut them, you can see them, and I just pull them out with scissors. So I'm actually gonna get the end of the straw. I think I cut that one too short, so I'm actually gonna pull that out. I don't want it going below the frosting line, because then there's no point. Okay, now I'm just gonna put a little bit of frosting, and I'm gonna get my next tier. Now, this cake is not perfectly level, right? It just came that way. They're not, especially if they're bakery, they're not gonna be totally perfect. So what I'm gonna do to compensate, I'm gonna add a little extra frosting just over on this side. Don't worry, when it gets all covered, we'll balance everything out, but just to give it a little help, just make sure it's centered. Let go, and then I'm just going to get some parchment. Need a little piece of parchment because I'm just gonna kind of press down. I feel like right here it's still low. I'm just gonna lift it a little bit and just put a little bit of, there we go. Just make it as perfect as you can. That's better. Okay, then I'm going to repeat the process. You won't need as many straws up here. Probably 3 will be plenty. And I don't need a center one. Repeat the process. Those are perfect. See if there's any low spots. Not really. And let's get the last tier. Make sure it's centered. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, don't worry, we're gonna cover this all with frosting, and I promise it's going to look so beautiful at the end. Cakes always go from, you know, your cakes to looking, oh my gosh, this isn't looking great, and then at the last minute they come together and they're beautiful. I have learned that over the many, many years and hundreds of cakes that I've made, that they look worse before they look better. For whatever reason, well, just because this. Okay, all right, now it's time to decorate. So I've got my frosting. I'm going to go for kind of a, I'm gonna go for like that rustic scallop look. I don't know what to call it, but I think this cake is going to be much too hard to try to get smooth buttercream on, because you've just got different types of frosting here. You've got some sprinkles. This is whipped cream frosting. It's going to be really difficult. So I want a thick layer of frosting that I'm just going to add some pretty texture to. So we're gonna start by piping on a nice thick layer of buttercream. Okay, and I'm going to go slightly above the rim of the cake. We're gonna do one tier at a time. Don't want any gaps at the bottom, so I wanna make sure everything's filled in. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of do some up and down motions, just kind of smooth it out a little bit. And I'm kind of pushing that frosting up above the level of the cake. Now, I'm gonna make sure my spatula is clean, and I'm gonna lightly run it around. I'm gonna clean after each pass. The beauty of this technique is it's fast, it's easy, and it looks pretty when it all comes together. Ah, yes, I like that. Just gonna make sure it's all filled in at the bottom. No gaps. Don't worry about the buttercream up here. We're going to be covering that with some fruit. So I actually want to push it up a little higher because I do want kind of a rim there. And I am going to trim it a little bit when we start to add the fruit. Okay, now we're going to do the next layer, or the next tier, I should say. And what are we at? Okay, we're at 17 minutes. Not counting freezing time. Add another, 5 minutes on for some freeze time. Minimum of 5 minutes. But what are we at, 22 minutes? Ah, yes, okay. And last tier. So this is going to end up using just a little over 2 of these filled bags. These are 16-inch bags, and I filled them about 2/3 of the way full, which would be about 1 of my buttercream recipes. The pound of butter, the 8 cups of powdered sugar. This would be enough buttercream to cover this size of cake, which is good, because if you're making your own buttercream, you only have to make 1 batch. Remember, I'm kind of going for that really rustic look, so the edges uneven is gonna be totally fine. And again, like I said, it's not complete, it doesn't look finished. We're gonna add those final touches and pull it all together. But just kind of get eye level with it and just make sure it's looking how you want it to look. Remember, there's always a front of the cake. That's my front right there, if I were going to display it. Okay, before I add decorations, I'm going to pop this in the freezer for another 10 minutes. We want this buttercream to set up before adding our flowers or fruit. In this case, I'm adding fruit. Okay, now the fun part. This is where it all comes together. This is where we go from boring, kind of unfinished, to totally gorgeous. Now, what I like to do is I like to get eye level with my cake. Every cake has a front, meaning it's the best side, where it looks the most even, where the frosting is exactly how you want it. This is my front right here, and I like to get a toothpick and just mark where my front is so I remember. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna kind of clean up the edges a little bit. Like you can see right there, there's some extra frosting. I don't want that there, so I'm just gonna kind of cut that out a little bit. And just anything you think that needs to be. Sometimes I'll even kind of just gently flatten it or pull the buttercream out a little bit, just to give more of like a ledge so the fruit will fit on there. I hope that makes sense. You could add fruit and flour. I mean, you could do both. There's lots. You could add just some chocolates, some pretty white chocolates. Lots of things that you could do. But what I have here is I just have some fresh fruit, and I've washed and dried thoroughly. Make sure you dry it thoroughly so the juices don't bleed into the buttercream. The strawberries, I love to leave the stems on and cut them in half. And then I think that open end is just really pretty on the cake. So don't forget I have my timer going. We are at around 21 and a half, 22 minutes, not counting the freezing time. And now we're just gonna add our fruit. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the bigger pieces first. Again, make sure they're thoroughly dry. Once you cut them open, you can pat them dry with a paper towel. And I'm just gonna start placing the big pieces first, bigger pieces around the cake. And if you feel like it needs to adhere or stick a little bit better, you can get some frosting and, you know, just put little, I don't really think it needs it a whole lot, but if you feel like it does, you can definitely add that. Just kind of evenly, but not too even. You want, again, we're going for this rustic look. You don't want it to be too symmetrical. And then I'm gonna add the next biggest, which are these blackberries. And again, randomly placing them. I didn't have as many blackberries, so I wanna save some for the top, so I'm not gonna do as many of those. Okay, I have a lot of raspberries though, so I'm gonna go ahead. And I like to have the open part out, but I mean, you can really do it however you like. And then the little spaces you will just fill in with some of your blueberries. And you can build up a little bit. You can put some, it doesn't have to just be in one horizontal line. You can add some height. But see, it's already looking just that much more pretty, right? One more little guy in here. Oop, strawberries falling down. Already so pretty, right? Okay, now we're just gonna repeat with our next tier. I'll kind of, as we get higher up, I'll use smaller pieces. Isn't that just looking so elegant? I love it. Okay, now just to finish it off, I'm going to just place some berries. I actually want to build a little bit of height, plus help it stick a little more with some extra frosting. Oh, I have one blackberry left. Let's put that at the front. My kids ate the blackberries last night. I forgot to tell them they were off limits. I don't have as many for this. And then just fill in kind of all the empty spaces. This raspberry keeps falling off. I am going to, there we go. Stick that on. I think I'm happy with that. Yes, I'm gonna stop right there. Just kidding, right there. Okay. This does not look like a Walmart. Okay, it's been 29 minutes. So under 30 minutes, and some of that I didn't account for me having to go wash some more blueberries because I didn't have enough. 30 minutes to throw this together. That does not count the freezer time. I would say a minimum of 15 minutes total because you want to freeze a little bit between these 3 steps. But you, look at this. Isn't that pretty? That does not look like a Walmart bakery cake. That does not look like I threw it together in 30 minutes. That looks like a pretty custom cake. Ooh, I'm so happy with that. Now let's say you didn't have a wedding cake emergency. What if you are on a really tight budget and you wanted to make your own wedding cake? This is something that you absolutely can do. You don't have to be a professional baker. You don't have to be an expert baker. I really believe that anyone could go make their own wedding cake using some store-bought cakes, a few decorating techniques, and adding some fruit or flowers, and you will save so much money. I would say the total cost of ingredients, the cakes themselves were $25 total. This top tier was $5. The buttercream was probably another $5 for a pound of butter and 2 pounds of powdered sugar. And then the fruit was, a little more pricey. I would say I spent $10 to $15 on the fruit. But that's still, you're at $45. That custom wedding cakes can cost up to $1,000. I would say average is at least $400 for a wedding cake. So this saves you so much money. And if I were going to charge for this, let's say I don't know, you were making a cake for someone else and they were on a budget and you could suggest this, I would charge, so $45 in ingredients. This took me, not counting driving to the bakery and picking up the cakes, this took me 30 minutes. 45 with the freezing time. 45 minutes, I would probably only charge $75 for this. So I make, you know, 25, 30 bucks on that because it just didn't take that long and it wasn't that hard. So yeah, I would love to see your take on a Walmart bakery wedding cake. In case you haven't heard, I have created online cake decorating courses, 50 videos divided into 4 parts, and it's by far the best value out there. So make sure to check the link in the description, and I do add courses periodically. If you would like my free ebook with my top 10 cake and buttercream recipes, make sure you sign up for my newsletter. The link is below. If you want to see more tutorials like this, first of all, I have my other Walmart makeover cakes just on regular cakes. But if you want to see more tutorials like this, just subscribe to my channel and I will see you next time. I just love that. Didn't that turn out pretty?